Happy New Year. Welcome to Hollywood Balls, live from the Dubliners in Dubai. A special edition, New Year's Day edition. Get the Alka-Seltzer out. It's a little quiet, but I imagine it's going to get going. Lovely to have the boys and girls who've made the journey. And, of course, you online. A very happy New Year to you all. Big welcome to today's guest. Looking forward to this one. Hollywood Balls with Lee Clark. Your early morning alarm caller for in the UK. Happy New Year. Afternoon here in the UAE. Lovely sunny day for those of you that have bad weather wherever you are. Welcome. Listen, before we start, just wanted to say a very special mention to the man who made football global, Pele. Welcome, Lee. Lee, Pele, the greatest in many people's eyes.
I think he has to be, doesn't he? 3 World Cup wins as a player. His first one as a 17-year-old. Iconic person. Meant to be a fantastic character, a great person to be around, just an exceptional footballer. And I put something on social media. It was why everyone loved the game and wanted to be a part of it. And a very sad day, but I think they'll be having a canny football match up there now with him, Maradona, Cruyff. Decent.
They've got a decent team. Listen, I wanted to ask you about that as well. There was talk about perhaps retiring the number 10 shirt for Brazil. And quite a few people in the media on Twitter and social media have said that they shouldn't possibly do that because, and something you'll know as an ex-player, for the future generation, surely that's the marker, isn't it? That you want to be able to wear that famous number 10 shirt.
Without a doubt, I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can see the reason why they may consider it, because you're such an iconic person, an iconic player, and the king, as everyone described him, rightly so. But as you say, for the younger generation of players, it's something for them to aim for. All the young boys there and girls as well now with the football the way it is, playing football, want to wear that number 10 Brazil shirt, won't they? So, yeah, I would go with the second one and say keep it going and let these youngsters have that ambition of one day, mirroring the legend that Pele was.
Absolutely. Bruno wore it yesterday. Bruno Guimaraes, he had a Brazilian top on in the warm-up. Great to see. Looked good in that Brazil top. Didn't get it on much during the World Cup, lads, did he? Okay, listen, before we take a look back at Lee's career and what a career it was, I want to catch up on the current vibe. As I say, a couple of the boys are down here. They were watching the game yesterday. It's a strange one after the World Cup because it's just a strange season all around. Frustrating whatnot yesterday, but you were just saying off early before we came on, you were talking in your WhatsApp group, and if you look at where they've been, where Newcastle have come from, yes, it's frustrating, but the bigger picture surely is that what a year it's been.
Absolutely. If you go back to this day last year, there was lots of fear around the supporters because didn't know what type of transfer window it was going to be, didn't know which type of players we could attract because the position the team found themselves in after a really poor first half of the season, not getting great results. And then if you take that forward exactly 12 months, we're getting disappointed because we've drawn 0-0 at home to a stubborn Leeds team to make us be third position in the Premier League and 12 matches unbeaten. So yeah, that's how you have to. With success, the expectation level rises, and that's what's happening. And it's great. The fans are going to the matches now. I go there as a fan myself. The expectation level around the city is phenomenal again, and everyone's going there with a smile on their face, looking forward to the game. The atmosphere before the matches is terrific with the war flag situation. So, and you're going to get it. The team hasn't just been getting good results; they've been playing fantastically well. And you cannot play like that all the time, people. Sometimes you have to grind out a result, probably on the game itself in terms of the chances. Newcastle deserved to win, but it was just one of those days. And if you cannot win, don't lose, and that's a sign of when you're a top team. You just keep the points total ticking over and get them ready for a tough game against the league leaders in the next few days.
Now you say as a fan now, so I'm quite comfortable asking the next question, because as a fan, you've got to say that Newcastle have never, in my 48 years, 45 years ago to watch them, have you ever thought, yeah, I don't fancy them to concede today? That's never been us. But currently, with that back four and what they're doing, they're really, really hard to beat with the likes of Sven Botman there.
Listen, the coach, the manager, whatever his title is, Eddie, who I know personally, but he's done unbelievable things. He's made the team more exciting, more attacking, play with high intensity, play on the front foot. But he's also made them very difficult to beat. As you say, the defensive record is exceptional. The signings that have been brought in, across the back line, the goalkeeper has been superb. Yeah. They've contributed to that. So every department of the team is working really well, and the signings that have been made in the 2 windows that Eddie's had have really took the team and the squad to a new level.
I've got to ask you that it is the 1st of January today, and Eddie says in all of his pre-match pressers currently, FFP, we're aware that it plays a large part. Do you think that masks a bit? Do you think there will be in to do a bit of business this January?
I think they will be looking. It's a horrible window to work in.
Yeah.
I've obviously had to deal with it myself at a lower level in terms of trying to bring players in and players out. And you know what? The standard of players that Newcastle will be wanting to bring in now to improve the squad, improve the starting 11. That's what the managers are looking to do, improve the starting 11, to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And you're looking for the top level elite players. And now how many clubs are letting those type of players leave, especially in January. Obviously, there's always an issue in terms of not Callum Wilson and how he plays, but his injury record, his injury history. Obviously, Alexander Isaacs had a tough start to his career with injuries as well. So you're always looking and thinking, there's a room for another striker, but that's another conundrum, because which club's going to sell that top striker to you? If there's not going to, and there's always a premium on the players in the January window as well. And if there is issues with the financial fair play for Newcastle, and he keeps talking about that could be a difficult one.
It's a congested Premiership up at that top end, so you would think he would. And do you think John Joe Shelby, being injured as well, Lee, do you think that might force his hand to have a look and strengthen in midfield? Because you're only a Bruno away from not having a midfield, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I think Eddie's already come out and stated that it's changed our strategy in terms of January recruitment. They are looking to bring a midfield player in now. I think it's one of the other targets that they had before John Joe's injury. So I think he's obviously got a substantial injury which is going to keep him out for a long period of time. So they'll be looking to bring another one in. So yeah, that might have changed the planning for them at this moment in time.
Good stuff. Nice to see Julie in the house. Julie, how are you? Happy New Year. Late on parade. Was it a late one yesterday? Not long after the match. Good to hear. Good to have you all online as well. Welcome to TFC and to everyone from Board 8 Football Club. Happy New Year to you all. Big Happy New Year to the QPR fans, to Jamo Norris, who's ambassador for Board 8. Got to say hi to him and his boy, George, who's played for Luton Town. We'll speak about boys in a bit as well, because there's a young Clark ripping it up again in the Premier League. So we'll get on to that. But just staying in that top, it's getting very congestedly. Arsenal had another great win. Man United are looking dangerous as well. They're picking up points and goals again. Can Newcastle, what do they have to do? Do they just not focus on that and just, is it every game as it comes?
It's the old cliche. Yeah. It is, honestly, and I know sometimes supporters and people get bored with that when people inside the game talking the old cliches, but it is, they kind of lose their focus. They kind of be thinking, if we can take this many points in the next few games. It's just now the focus is totally on Arsenal.
Yeah,
you go there and you get the 3 points. You take 3 points off them, and who knows what can happen. I said it all along, and it's happened in our lifetime, hasn't it? You had Blackburn Rovers doing it when no one thought they could do it in my era. And then obviously you've had Leicester, in the last few years do it. So Newcastle have certainly got a squad good enough to make that dream come true.
And in Kieran Trippier, they've got someone who he started all this revolution, but he's a real leader, isn't he? You would think there's players in there that are quality, of course, that your Botmans, but when it comes to leadership and possibly getting you over the line and keeping it all going, Trippier's the main man, isn't he?
100%. He's been an outstanding signing. He was a player that I just didn't think we could get in that January window, and he showed his leadership qualities. He showed how much he wanted to be a part of this new era that was beginning, and he's came in and not only being a top player that I thought he was, he's also been a real good leader. You can see he's encouraging players. He's driving them. He's showing leading by example. His performance levels have been superb, to be honest. He's been a superb signing. But I didn't actually think in last January, I didn't think we'd be able to attract that type of player, I've got to say, because of the position we were in. So great work by Eddie and his staff and the backroom team to get Kieran to come, and he bought into what the new project was going to be, and he's certainly leading from the front.
Games coming thick and fast, obviously New Year's Day, so there's games today with Tottenham and Chelsea both involved. As I say, it's getting very congested, and an unexpected blip for City, which proves they're human as well. Everton went and did exactly what Leeds did at Newcastle yesterday. I've never seen Haaland as frustrated.
No, listen, this is what happens when you become one of the top teams, when you become one of the clubs that are, have great home records. The opposition come and play a deep lying game. They come with a low block, a bit similar to what Newcastle used to do before Eddie Howe arrived, which is the most frustrating football in the world. But that's what Newcastle have to contend with now, and that's what Eddie will be looking at that and saying, right, what type of players can I get now to when teams come with those 10 men behind the ball? Can we do who someone can just produce a bit of magic out of nothing, unlock the door? When usually Man City have the answer. They obviously didn't have the answer yesterday, but you need that De Bruyne type player, don't you, who can make something from nothing. And so that maybe that's in his thought process in terms of looking into the transfer market and thinking who we can take in January to maybe do that, because up until this season that never been an issue for Newcastle, because teams would play on the front foot against them, so you could play. But now Newcastle have changed the way they play, different type.
They've got to learn as well how to deal with what they were dealing out previously as well, don't they? Listen, you mentioned before about the entertainers. I want to get onto that because the age group in here today is of that era, myself included, obviously. So we all saw you play. But for those online, let's have a little reminder. Have a look at this.
And that's Clark, and that's a goal. 2-0. Lee Clark's first of the season. Bosnich can't believe it. Beardsley on first time. Clark goes all the way. He scored. Lee Clark was not to be denied, and he's put Newcastle ahead. 32 minutes gone. Beardsley. Here's Lee Clark, and that's 2-0. Lee Clark puts Newcastle in control with 8 minutes left. Plenty of smiles from Dalglish, and Clark, 3 goals in 3 games now for him. He was onto that like a flash, and Newcastle now should be comfortable.
Again, making his way towards the near post, it's over him. Schwarzer comes out, not the most effective pass. Back for a crowd of players and in from Lee Clark. 2-2. It's all as even in the Tyne Tees derby.
There we go. All our yesterdays. 3-3 said there, by the way.
Yeah. And got dropped the game after against Nottingham Forest, the quarter-final of the FA Cup.
Listen, I want to take it back now, because it all started in 92, 93, really, when you think about it. That incredible season where Kevin was in there and they won promotion, 11 wins, if you remember, off the belt. And after the 3rd game, I think it was Derby County away at the baseball ground, the fans were singing, we're going to win the league. After the 3rd game, they knew something special was happening. What I wanted to know, did the players feel the same so early on?
it's a strange one to answer that, because after 3 or 4 games, what the difference was, we knew we were a good team. We had a great group of players. We had a great team that had really experienced players, but still who could contribute. And then we had, obviously, I was like 18, 19 myself, so we had good youngsters as well. So there's that great combination in the team. You say that game, we went to Derby, and they'd spent a ridiculous amount of money in the Championship that summer. And, our old manager, Arthur Cox, someone who I got to work with later on when he came back with Kevin, who, wasn't shy in telling people what he thought. He was telling everyone that wanted to listen that Derby were the team to beat. And as you see, I think was it the 3rd game this year? We went and we won 2-1 there, played fantastic football. And I think that was the game that made the fans start to believe. But then, as you see, you go 11 wins on the bounce, 33 points from 33 at the start of the season. But isn't it just like Newcastle to lose the 12th one, going to Grimsby? So, so and we just, what happened then as well, it was different. There wasn't a transfer window the way it was. The transfer window was open all during the season to the end of March. The last Thursday in March was when the window was shut. So and what Kevin continued to do, he just kept bringing players in that improved the group, and we had to keep raising our own standards. So you got your likes of Scott Sellers, who proved to be an unbelievable signing for us, wonderful left foot. Then obviously Coley came along to take us to a new level in terms of scoring goals. So that it was Kevin who he made the team just get on that line where we had to improve the standard of training. Went up every time there was a new signing, because a new signing made us even better. And it was so competitive, the training, because you knew if you dropped your level, you'd be out the team.
Interestingly, you talk about that. If you had to single out the greatest number 9, it's difficult for us as Newcastle fans. There are so many names, but your good pal Andy Cole, he's got to be in with a shout for it, hasn't he? I mean, he did 64 in 81 or 61 in 84 goals for Newcastle. Untouchable. Do you think that was with Beardsley, or just out and out, just goal getter?
No, because Kevin brought in the type of striker that he knew could get goals because of the players we had. You had Peter's ability to find a pass, see a pass. You had Scott Sellers on the left, who, as I've already said, had a wonderful left foot. I would like to break the lines and could, pass. I think passing was one of my strengths. So, and Coley was the striker who wanted to play on the last defender's shoulder, and if it got into a race, they weren't beating him. And when you're like that, but also your level of your finishing is so high, it was just becoming natural for him. And you think back to some of the goals, that one on the half volley with his left foot against Chelsea, it smashed into the top corner in the Leeds' end. His records makes him stand up. Our club's been based on famous number 9s, and there'll always be 5 or 6 that you say. Obviously, Alan is always up there as the number 1, but you can never take away Coley's goal ratio and what he'd done in that period. And obviously he went to one of our rivals, but still keep in touch with him. Seen him a couple of weeks ago. Still loves his time that he had here. Really thinks highly and fondly of the Newcastle United fans and the club. So he's right up there as one of the very best 9s we've had here.
I remember hearing the Andy Cole song for the first time in the corner of the Gallagher. That had some use as well. Listen, I've got to ask you this, because we've chatted about it before, but Keegan's legendary with all Newcastle fans, but he wasn't to be messed with, was he, Lee? Speaking from experience, tell us about the bucket skirmish.
It was the live game on the Sunday. We played Southampton down at the Old Dell, and I remember when came in at half time, and he had a bit of a pop at Rob Lee. He basically said that I was the only one in midfield doing my job, and Rob hadn't been at his best. I was actually playing against Peter Reid that day. Reedy was playing for Southampton, and so when my number popped out the toasters halfway through the second half to come off at 1-1, I got a bit frustrated. And if you remember the Dell, the crowd was so close to the touchline. You've got like a couple of feet, and I started like walk away from the dugout, and I was using a few expletives and he was telling us not to swear and stuff like that. And then I booted the metal bucket that the physio had. It really hurt, but I didn't want to show I was in pain. I tried to storm off down the side, and he ran after me. And you know, when we were young, the way your dad would, he'd like smack your backside if you'd done something. And that's what he was doing, like smacking my backside as I went down the touchline and dragging us back into the dugout. Unfortunately, Letizia had done what he usually done against us and scored another worldie. Scored 2 in that game. They beat us 2-1, and so obviously in the dressing room afterwards, the result wasn't really getting talked about. It was what had happened to me. So he banned us for the next game. Then he played Wimbledon in the cup, and he left me out. So, but I got reinstated on the following weekend when we played Wimbledon in the league, and that was the cup game was the game where Coley went into like a bit of a strike on behalf of us, didn't he?
Yeah.
He hadn't believed I'd been treated right. I remember Barry Venison ringing me up the morning of the game because they played Wimbledon away in the cup, and they said, "Oh, your mate's gone out and strike for you." And I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Oh, Coley's left the hotel," so he'd had a bit of a set too. But we got recalled. Yeah. They got beaten in the cup in the midweek off Wimbledon. Then we had them in the league the following Saturday, and we both got recalled, and we beat them 4-0, and Coley scored 2, and I made a couple of chances for Coley.
Always forgiven, but it's fascinating for us fans though, because you see the managers before the game, the press conference, and obviously they keep all of that closed. The fans don't get to know about it, so it's interesting to hear just how hard Kevin was as a manager. Looking at, I've got to ask you though, looking at their training, I've got to ask, who was the best trainer and who was the worst trainer in your time when you were a player with the black and white shirt on?
I wanted the best, without a shadow of a doubt, was Barry Venison. He trained, we all trained the way we played. That was drilled into us by the manager and his demands, but Barry was unbelievable in terms of his dedication and his work ethic. It was difficult to have a worse trainer because those standards would never be allowed. But certainly in pre-season, the running stuff, the physical stuff, Alan just didn't want to know, like, to be honest. And he was never involved in the couple of runners at the front in the fitness drills. As he used to just keep saying, it was up to us, all us, to go and get the ball to him, and he put it in the net. So that's why we had to be fit. So.
Brilliant. Listen. I think it was nearly 6 or 7 months ago, Lee managed to get a hold of Faustino Asprilla, and we had him on Hollywood Balls, which was quite the evening, wasn't it? Tino on. Tell everyone your favourite Tino story. I know there's a few, but if you've got one that you can share with us that's family oriented, it would be great.
Yeah. There's not many family oriented, to be honest. This guy was an unbelievable footballer, genius for some of the things he could do. A great guy as well, bought into what our club was about, became really popular with the players. The lads loved him, he was crazy. For the older fans, there's a couple. He came back from international duty, playing for Colombia, and he was on the Derek Wright's treatment table, and he had like a bit of it looked like it was like a stud wound, like a stud had gone through his calf. So as usual, I was in and I was like giving him a bit of stick. I was like, "Tino, what's this on your calf? Bad tackle?" He says, "No, Nash, gunshot wound." I said, "Gunshot wound?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Back in Colombia on my ranch, someone tried to shoot me." And I says, "Tino, you need to start behaving yourself, because if you don't, you'll be kicked off the Colombian national team." He says, "Nashki, never. Me and Pablo Escobar picked the national team."
Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. Listen, staying on that playing journey, although legend at Newcastle, you were legend at Sunderland as well, because you got player of the year there, didn't you, with Reedy, and that's not difficult, says Julie. But listen, just how difficult was it to make that move? Bearing in mind, and what my question to you was, did you take advice from Barry Venison and Paul Bracewell, who made the move themselves the other way?
Well, Paul was actually Peter Reid's assistant.
Yeah.
So I was very close with Paul. Struck up a strong relationship with him, with me and him in midfield. and so yeah, he played a big part. But you know, it was tough. I knew what the situation could do, but at that time I wasn't ready to move away from the northeast. It wasn't, you know, at that stage of my career, and it was Reedy's persuasive actions. He took us to Manchester. 5 bottles of Dom Perignon later, I was pissed and I'd signed the contract. So it was, it was like that. You know what? He was a great guy. I loved playing for him. He had so many similarities to Kevin. He was brilliant. He loved talking about Newcastle. Even when I was there, we'd get into the canteen early, and especially after a weekend, and he'd say, "Right, son, what your mate's been singing about is over in Newcastle." I said, not much, Gaffer, just you've got a monkey's head, that's all. And he just used to burst out laughing, you know. And I think there's a couple of times he went over to St James's, England under 21s were playing there and stuff, and he popped into the Black Bull and on Barrack Road and stuff like that. And you know, he still loves talking. A couple of months ago, when my good friend and Terry Mack got diagnosed with the first part of his dementia starting, he rang me up straight away and said, "I want to come and see him." I says, "Yeah, let's organise a bite to eat." And we ended up meeting in Gosforth, me, Terry, John Beresford, Reedy. And we had an unbelievable afternoon. The stories were flying between Terry and Reedy from them growing up in Liverpool together. You can imagine what that was like. Not many drinks spilled between them two, that's for sure. And then obviously going later on, and we just had an unbelievable day in the afternoon, and it was good to see. And he talks so highly. He done a bit of a show actually around the country with him and Kevin together. And I went to see it at Wynyard, and it was brilliant. The two of them were brilliant. They both got grey hair, obviously, and must have been one of the few players that both had managed. And Pete Graves was doing it from Sky, and he was introducing everyone. Says, "I've got Lee Clark," and they both grabbed the mic at the same time. Says, "That's why we've got grey hair, managing people like him."
Again, as well, another spell in your career where the fans just loved you, but you loved your time in London with Fulham. You had an unbelievable time there, didn't you?
Oh, that was take away from what happened at Newcastle, where I lived the dream of being a fan to turning out to be a player. That was one of the best parts of my playing career. To help the club, had an ambitious owner like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the day I signed, it was the Fulham Supporters Club was at Craven Cottage. That was their 5-year anniversary from them finishing 91st out of 92 clubs in the Football League. And that day I was 5 years on, and then 2 years later we were in the Premier League. And a year beyond that we were in Europe. We got to play in the Europa League where we finished in the previous season, and it was amazing club. It's not as big as Newcastle or whatever in terms of the fan base, but the way it was, family orientated, loved where I was, loved the people at the club, the training ground, and played with some great players there, and really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, that club will always be important to me. I'm delighted how they're doing. They're having a terrific season, and that was massive for me.
Into management as well. I mean, I've got to mention this. It's still, although friends, I still can't get my head around how you can go unbeaten for a season as a manager at Huddersfield Town, 41, 42 games, and get the sack.
43 actually. No, that's the biggest honour, because I beat the great Brian Clough, who had 42 games. This is in the Football League, by the way, because you've obviously got Arsenal in the Premier League or the Invincibles, but in the EFL. So, yeah, we'd playoff semi-final, playoff final, and then third place with 2 games in hand and 2 points behind the leaders. When I got the phone call to say my contract had been terminated, I think we'd lost two out of our previous 61 games. So no one's ever safe.
No one's ever safe. I just find it quite remarkable. Listen, I wanted to ask up and catch up with you while we've got you here. Bobby is going great guns. he's going about it the right way. He's at a proper club. He was at Newcastle. It hasn't worked out there. He's at Liverpool. And I know from speaking to you just how impressed you are with how Liverpool have furthered him getting on. And he's knocking on the door. He was on the bench against Leicester, Bobby Clark, and he must be very proud.
Immensely proud, far prouder than anything I've achieved. What he's done to make his Premier League debut and to make his full start in the Carabao Cup and then come off the bench another couple of times and being on the bench another 5 or 6 at 17 years of age of one of the biggest clubs in the world is a phenomenal achievement. Yeah. And he's got a manager who has a pathway for young players. You know, it left a bit of taste in my mouth. What happened at Newcastle. I was never involved directly with the decision. Bobby decided where he wanted to be. I can only advise him as his father. And there was lots of contradictory things happened. You know, you can't 1 minute be talking about this boy being the best player in your academy, and then he cannot. Then you just accept the first financial offer that comes in for him. There wasn't really any fight for them to stay. Does that hurt? Of course it hurts, because how many fathers and sons have played for Newcastle? A lot of people have said, I bet you're gutted now because of the takeover. I'm actually not, because I think Mike Ashley left the club in that much of a mess. By the time these new owners get down to the academy level, after they've had to stifle through all the mess with the first team, which they're doing on a brilliant way at the moment, Bobby might have been too old then. His career might have been past. So who knows in the future what can happen about him ever coming back. But he's on a great pathway, but a tough pathway. He's on the bottom rung of a very high ladder if he wants to be, you know, a Premier League footballer. And but he's going about it the right way. As I said to him last night, he gets a little bit frustrated. I said, how many 17-year-olds are playing in the Premier League at this moment in time? There isn't many, and he's been one of them. So, I mean, you can never forget your Premier League debut when you're involved in a record score. They beat Bournemouth 9-0. So, yeah, he's doing great. He's going to keep improving because they've got good people there in the right positions, and they're doing that right. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Any of you boys, girls, got any questions for Lee before I put the last one to him? Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, obviously, you were there through the Keegan days. What do you reckon would have happened had he not left? Do you think the team and like a history would have, my opinion, would be different? What do you think?
So asking what would have happened if he hadn't left, Lee Keegan?
Well, there was no ceiling with him, was there? He always said that he wanted to, and he probably got mocked for it, wanted to win the league when we got promoted on the championship. Him and Sir John both saying, watch out, your Man Uniteds and your Liverpool are coming for you, and we want to get into Europe. And I think a lot of people outside in Newcastle probably mocked. And I think while Kevin was there, the group he brought together, the togetherness we had, there would have been a fantastic opportunity for us to win something, but it's all if buts and maybes, you know. We could tell he was an open book. We knew that day at Charlton in the Cup that there was something up. We didn't, and when it was announced a day later when Terry McDermott told us the news, we were obviously devastated. We'd lost a man we trusted unbelievably. He trusted us. Yeah, but to answer the question, I think there was a brilliant opportunity for us to go and achieve what hadn't been done and hasn't been done since '69, and that was win a major trophy for the club.
Which leads me nicely into my last question for you, Lee. Can Eddie Howe be that man to lead Newcastle out of the trophy wilderness? I read somewhere that the owners might believe that he could be Newcastle United's own Sir Alex Ferguson.
He hasn't started so badly, has he? And he certainly can be that man. I think the fans are loving the way he sets the team up. The players seem to be loving playing for him. You know, the atmosphere, as I've said, is electric around the city, going into the stadium. Yeah, he can definitely be the man. And what he's done is he's treating the cup games like he wants to win them as well. He puts out ridiculously strong teams. There's no, There's no, oh, I need to rest 5 or 6 players because we've got a big Premier League game. He's thinking I could be 4 or 5 games from immortality here, because let's face it, the next manager who wins a trophy will be getting that statue alongside Sir Bobby. So that's the thing for him, and they'll be remembered, because look at us guys are from the entertainers. We finished second, and how many people say second's nothing, it's all about winning, but we're still remembered. So these lads have got an unbelievable opportunity to get that first trophy since '69. So, like I said, just, you know, be gods around the place.
Absolutely. What a great note to finish on. Arsenal up next for Newcastle, which we'll be covering on Hollywood Balls, of course. Thanks to you all for being on live. For those of you here, I'm sure Lee won't mind a couple of pictures and some autographs. Looks like he's on the Guinness, so that you can top that up for him. Brilliant to see you all. Listen, all I want to do is wish you a happy new year for 2023 to all of you. And thank you all for your help and support in 2022, for making Hollywood Balls what it is today. Thank you all, and see you next week.